In 2024 alone, airlines in the United States collected more than $7.2 billion from checked baggage fees. That's over $7,000 million made from passengers simply bringing their clothes, shoes, and travel essentials on a flight. If you stacked that much money in $1 bills, the pile would be hard to imagine. And the crazy part is that this money came from luggage, not from flying people across the country. Now, you might think baggage fees are just a small side business for airlines, maybe a little extra income here and there. But for some airlines, money from bags, seat selection, boarding upgrades, and other extra charges has become one of the most important parts of the entire business. Think about how strange that is. Most of us assume airlines mainly make money by selling flights. You pay for a seat, they fly you somewhere, and that's where the profit comes from. But in many cases today, the flight ticket is only part of the story. It's kind of like going to a movie theater and discovering the popcorn stand is making more money than the movie itself. Except in this version, the popcorn weighs 50 pounds and contains your socks, toothpaste, and a week's worth of vacation clothes. Most travelers never stop to question it. They see a baggage fee, get annoyed, pay it, and move on. But what if those fees aren't just covering costs? What if they're actually one of the smartest money-making systems airlines have ever created? Because once you see where the money really comes from, you'll realize that the airline industry changed its business model years ago, and most passengers barely noticed it happening. So how did airlines turn something as ordinary as a suitcase into a multi-billion-dollar revenue machine? And why are passengers paying more and more for something that used to be included for free? If you ask most people why baggage fees exist, the answer sounds pretty reasonable. Bags add weight to airplanes. More weight means more fuel is burned during the flight. More fuel means higher costs for the airline. And to be fair, that's not completely wrong. Every suitcase has to be checked in, sorted, loaded onto the aircraft, unloaded at the destination, and transported through a complex system involving workers, vehicles, and equipment. From the airline's perspective, luggage is not just luggage. It's another thing that needs to be handled safely and delivered to the right destination. Nobody wants their suitcase ending up in Alaska when they're vacationing in Florida. So yes, transporting bags costs money. No serious person would argue otherwise. But the real question isn't whether bags cost money. The real question is whether those costs can explain billions and billions of dollars in baggage fee revenue. Because when a fee grows into a multi-billion-dollar business, it's worth asking whether it still exists to cover costs or whether it has become something much bigger. That's where things start getting interesting. And here's something many travelers forget. There was a time when checking a bag was completely normal and usually included in the ticket price. Airlines weren't charging extra for every suitcase back then. In the early 2000s, most passengers bought a ticket, showed up at the airport, checked their luggage, and boarded the plane. Nobody had to solve a math problem just to figure out the final price of a trip. Today, that experience looks very different. Many travelers discover that the price they first saw online is nowhere near the amount they actually end up paying. By the time baggage fees, seat fees, and other extras are added, the final total can be surprisingly higher than expected. And that's when you realize something important. Airlines are no longer just selling transportation from one city to another. They're selling a collection of smaller products and services that can each be priced separately and charged individually. To understand why baggage fees became such a huge business, we need to follow the money. Not where passengers think the money goes, but where it actually goes once they start clicking that Continue Booking button. Imagine you're booking a flight and you find an incredible deal. A ticket appears on your screen for just $49. Compared to other options, it looks like a steal, and you feel like you've just outsmarted the system. But then, reality shows up carrying luggage. Suddenly, the airline starts asking questions. Do you want to bring a carry-on? Do you want to check a bag? Do you want to sit next to the person you're traveling with? Each of those choices comes with a price. One extra fee might not seem like much on its own. But airlines know that millions of passengers make these purchases every single year, and those small amounts quickly add up. Before long, that $49 flight starts looking a lot less like a bargain. It's a little like ordering a cheap burger and discovering that the bun, fries, napkins, and ketchup somehow cost extra. This strategy has a name: unbundling. That's simply a business strategy where companies separate things that used to come together and charge for each piece individually, instead of including everything in one price. For airlines, this approach turned out to be incredibly profitable. It allowed them to advertise lower ticket prices while creating new opportunities to earn money later in the booking process. And the numbers are enormous. According to industry estimates, airlines worldwide generated roughly $148 billion from add-on products and services in 2024. That's more money than the entire annual economy of many countries around the world. Out of that massive total, baggage fees alone generated approximately $33.3 billion globally. Think about that for a second. That's not seats, food, Wi-Fi, or upgrades. That's money earned from passengers bringing suitcases. To put $33.3 billion into perspective, it's enough money to purchase thousands of luxury mansions or hundreds of private jets. And every dollar of that came from luggage moving through airports around the world. Now, let's look at a real example. Spirit Airlines built much of its business around low ticket prices combined with optional extras. In recent years, baggage fees alone have brought in well over $1 billion annually, becoming one of the company's most important revenue sources. But Spirit isn't the airline that changed the game the most. Another airline took this idea even further and proved something that completely reshaped the industry. What they discovered would convince airlines everywhere to rethink how they price flights, and it changed the travel experience for millions of passengers almost overnight. That airline was Ryanair, one of Europe's largest low-cost carriers. Years ago, Ryanair became famous for offering extremely cheap tickets, sometimes cheaper than what people would spend on lunch. The goal wasn't necessarily to make all the money from the ticket itself. The goal was to get passengers into the booking process. Once customers were in the system, they would often pay for extras like checked bags, priority boarding, seat selection, and other add-ons. Those extra purchases became a major part of the company's business model and helped inspire similar strategies across the airline industry. And from the airline's perspective, the logic is simple. Lower ticket prices attract attention. More attention brings more bookings. More bookings create more opportunities to sell additional services. Think about how people shop online. Most travelers search by price first. If airline A costs $150 and airline B costs $120, many customers will click airline B before looking at anything else. Airlines understand this behavior extremely well. They know that being the cheapest option on the search page can be more valuable than including everything up front in the ticket price. That's why baggage fees aren't just about making money directly. They also help airlines advertise lower base fares, making their prices look more attractive compared to competitors. In other words, separating the bag fee from the ticket doesn't just create extra revenue. It changes how customers compare flights in the first place, and that can influence millions of purchasing decisions every year. Now here's where things get even more interesting. The cost of handling one additional checked bag is usually much lower than the fee passengers pay for checking it. That doesn't mean baggage handling is free. Airlines still pay workers, maintain equipment, and move luggage through airports, but the fee charged to customers can be significantly higher than the direct cost of handling that individual suitcase. This is why baggage fees became so attractive to airlines. Unlike selling another seat on a plane, many of the major flight costs already exist, whether one extra bag is checked or not. The plane still needs pilots. The aircraft still needs fuel. The airport still charges fees. Many of the biggest costs remain largely the same, whether your suitcase is on board or sitting in your closet at home. As a result, baggage fees often generate very attractive margins for airlines. A margin simply means the amount of money left after covering costs. And once airlines realized passengers were willing to pay these fees, the strategy spread rapidly. What started as a relatively uncommon charge gradually became a standard part of flying for millions of travelers. Today, many passengers don't even remember a time when checked luggage was included in the ticket. An entire generation of travelers grew up assuming baggage fees were just a normal part of air travel. But airlines didn't stop with luggage. Once they discovered people would pay separately for one service, they started experimenting with other services too. Seat selection became a fee. Priority boarding became a fee. Extra legroom became a fee. In some cases, even printing a boarding pass at the airport could come with an extra charge. From a business perspective, it was brilliant. Different passengers valued different things, and airlines found ways to charge people based on what they cared about most. Someone traveling for a weekend might skip checked luggage entirely. Someone taking a family vacation might happily pay for multiple bags. The airline earns money from both types of customers in different ways. And because these fees are optional in theory, airlines can still advertise a lower starting price. The customer feels like they have choices, even though many of those choices are practically necessities. Let's be honest. If you're moving across the country for a week-long trip, leaving all your clothes behind isn't exactly a realistic option. That's what makes baggage fees so powerful. Many passengers may not want to pay them, but many passengers still need to pay them. And when millions of people make the same purchase over and over again, even a relatively small fee can turn into billions of dollars in annual revenue. But here's the twist that changes everything. Baggage fees were never just about luggage. They're actually about psychology. Most people focus heavily on the first price they see. Psychologists call this anchoring. It simply means the first number we see tends to influence how we judge every number that comes afterward. So when a traveler sees a $49 ticket, their brain immediately locks onto that number. The later fees might be frustrating, but the cheap ticket already shaped how the deal feels. In other words, baggage fees aren't just earning money. They're helping create the low advertised prices that attract customers in the first place. The suitcase fee and the ticket price work together as part of the same strategy. That's why airlines continue using this system. It's not simply a charge for moving luggage from one airport to another. It's a pricing model that influences how customers shop, compare, and ultimately spend their money. So the next time you're paying $40, $50, or even more to check a suitcase, remember this: the bag itself may not be the real product. It might actually be one of the smartest money-making tools the airline industry ever created. If you worked at an airline, would you include one free checked bag in every ticket? Or would you keep charging separate baggage fees? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy uncovering the hidden business strategies behind the companies we use every day, hit like, subscribe, and stick around for more deep dives that make the world make a little more sense.